Welcome. We're just letting everybody in now. Welcome to Writing Relations, to Reconnecting with our guest, Phil Davis. So we'll let people in as they come. And just to introduce myself, my name is Krista, and I work here at the Hamilton Community Food Center, for part of Neighbor to Neighbor. And I also am a member of the Writing Relations Collective. And the Writing Relations Collective is it's a national network aiming to provide education, particularly around reconciliation, and in a way that's accessible. It's called popular education, and we're really excited that if this is your first encounter with Writing Relations, just want to say welcome. And if you have any questions, there is a website, Writing Relations. You can just Google it and easily find out. And this is our Hamilton chapter. And we're, of course, at the Neighbor to Neighbor Hamilton Community Food Center. This is our first session of this kind. So I just want to say, please bear with us if there's any sort of glitches, but I think we've got it underway. I'm going to ask if we can, everybody stays muted. And if you do have questions, if you want to put those into the chat while we're talking. Caitlin will be monitoring the chat, and there will be a time for questions and answers. So I think that's all of us that are here right now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce my friend Phil. We've had a great a little bit of a time together beforehand, and I feel that I'm honored to have met Phil and know a little bit about you so far. And I do want to bring Erica Miranda, another member of our collective, to formally introduce you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Give me some thumbs. Awesome. So my name is Erica Miranda, and I am the Community Action Coordinator here at Neighbor to Neighbor Hamilton Community Food Center. It is my honor and pleasure to formally introduce Phil Davis. I personally met Phil through the arts. He's a musician, incredible knowledge keeper, and I'm a dancer and artist with Dreamwalker Dance Company, and he's been a wonderful liaison there, and that's how I first formally got introduced to Phil. And so Phil is a healthy, happily 57-year-old man of Haudenosaunee descent. He was raised in the Niagara region and has many ties to not only his peoples here within Niagara, but well beyond. He's an active member with the local Niagara Friendship Center since childhood, and has continued to work with his people to help build a more sustainable future for children and grandchildren. He also continues to be a volunteer counselor with the Indigenous Justice Division program and sits on the advisory council. He is also part of the Justice Sharing Table group that oversees the challenges and complexities associated with the Indigenous Peoples Courts. These past 4 years, he has been involved with the development of having the Niagara region be designated as a UNESCO geopark, which will in turn create some economic opportunities for the community in the coming years. He is also an established community musician. I love that. I had the opportunity to hear him a few times even before I was formally introduced to him. Who enjoys and partakes in traditional Haudenosaunee songs, as well as powwow singer and Cree round dance songs. He is also co-founder of a 7-piece blues, rock, funk, jazz jam band called Old Child. He's traveled across the country learning about our ways of life and with his Indigenous brothers and sisters' ways, wherever the opportunity presents itself. So really an open heart and open mind, and really a life of sharing, and reciprocity. He has come to enjoy life at every crossroads because for himself, the beauty lies in the unknown. So welcome, welcome, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. Sego, Scanago. Hello, everybody. As you know, my name is Phil. It's nice for all of you to join us to take time out of your day. And that's the one thing that's shared with me. That's all we really have in life is time. And how we spend that is our choice. And I'm very honored to be here with every single one of you. I have a passion for talking with people and learning as much as I can, because I only have these two eyes, this one mind to experience life with. So experiencing the world through others is it's like reading a book to me, you know. So I love talking with people all the time. I love having the opportunity to share my perspective of the world. And that's all I'm going to do, is just share the only thing that I'm an expert on, and that's my own pedagogy and how I view things, how I absorb things as a human being, regardless of my background, of where I come from, which for myself is very unique. And I'm super thankful for having been given a lot of good teachers along my way. It's incredible what we as human beings can learn for ourselves to help us mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally deal with ourselves. You know, so I'm hoping that what I share with you tonight will give you a better understanding, not only of who I am, but also who the peoples are that I belong to, and how that relates to the rest of our brothers and sisters across many nations, and how it relates to you and yourself. You know, that we have our, what's been shared with me is our ways of knowing. That's always been what people say traditions or our culture, but they are our ways of knowing, and how we accept life in those ways that were created for us by our ancestors. And carrying on those ways of knowing the best way that we can is the best way to pay respect to them. So with that, I would like to start out with why we're here. This is what we call Haudenosaunee. It's our Thanksgiving address. And it talks about everything in creation that was gifted to us, the human beings, and allows us to have the life that we have. We know that life on Earth has survived without us, and it probably will again. But to be thankful that we have what we have, everything that you have, that you see behind me, everything that I see behind you in your screen, comes from creation. Everything we're using in this technology comes from creation. It's all going back, just like we are. You know, so to be thankful and show love and respect and acknowledge that through our words, I think is the most humbling thing that we can do as human beings. It helps keep us, it helps keep our feet on the ground and our head out of the clouds, and remind us of what's really important here as we go through our day. Because we only get one day at a time. We don't know if we're gonna make it through the end of the day. We don't know if we're gonna wake up in the morning. But when we do, and that's when we're thankful for this chance again at this thing we call life. And again, this is just my perspective of life and how I feel towards life as a human being, as a Haudenosaunee man, as ways have been shared with me in these unique ways of knowing us, our peoples, as our nationhood. So these words come from a gentleman called Dioge de Alfred. He's an academic from Akwesasne, in the Mohawk territory out to the east. He lives on Vancouver Island. And through his writing of a book called Peace, Power, and Righteousness, I use this form of the traditional opening to share with others who don't know anything about our peoples or haven't experienced that. I'm not a fluent speaker. I don't hold any kind of title within who we are. You know, I'm still learning, but I take every chance that I can to promote awareness, education, and to try to demystify that Hollywood version that's so ingrained in society of who we are, not just as Haudenosaunee people, but as Indigenous people across the world. You know, that it's such a scary kind of thing when you really look at it, to think that what you see on these types of screens is really what these people are about. You know, to look at it critically is, I think, is an important thing to do for all of us before we can pass a comment on about anything to do with anybody's people. Doesn't matter who they are. You know, these words again are called the words before all else. It's what we do and have been doing for thousands of years as Six Nations, as the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse. We come together and do our business of human beings, to govern ourselves, to look and care for each other. These words remind us again of how we need to be in this world when we walk. I'll share a little bit in Mohawk, but I'll translate it to a short Reader's Digest version so that you'll understand what it is that we're thankful for. And it's done at the opening of the gatherings and also at the end of our gathering, where it's said, and translated English, it would say, again, we are thankful. To remind us again, because when we get together as human beings, you know, we have anywhere up towards the 60,000 thoughts in a day. And when we get together as human beings, we have all these thoughts going in our heads. And as we leave and disperse from each other, we need to be reminded again of what we're all really, really doing here on this walk together on Mother Earth. It's to be thankful again for what we have. So I'll share those words, and then we'll just have a discussions from that. So daitino harado ne onquisto ne agwego scano agahage. Ito no yoduhage ingwa niguro. We give greetings, love, and understanding to the peoples of Mother Earth, to the streams, the lakes, and the pools, to the corns and the fruits and the medicines, to the trees and the forest for the usefulness, to the animals that provide us with pelts for clothing and sustenance of food, to the great winds and the lesser ones, to our eldest brother, the sun, to our grandmother, the moon, to all the celestial bodies in the sky, to the message of the Creator who revealed the wishes to us, and to the Creator who is the source and ruler of health and life. Nanito. And how does that make you feel? I know how it makes me feel. It reminds me of the timeline of life here on Mother Earth. If you put a linear line of 4.6 billion years, then you put in that timeline, doesn't matter how long the timeline is, if you gauge how long human beings have been here, that's where we stand as human beings. We've been here like a blip out of that timeline. Everything else has always been here before us. It reminds me of how I need to walk, how I need to talk, how I need to interact, how I need to speak. Our words are powerful. We know that because we've heard the sharpness of them before. We know how that makes us feel. If those words can make you feel that way with that tone, then we have the ability to feel better, to the opposite of that. Experience the kindness and love that we're supposed to give to each other as human beings. The Thanksgiving address for myself brings all of that to the forefront. It's the way that we walk on the earth while we're here on this short journey we call our lifespan. And when we start looking at it, we start looking at the beginning lines of giving greetings, love, and understanding to the peoples. It's extending ourselves and our hearts out to humanity who walk on our mother, the earth. So what does that really mean? For me, our mother, the earth, is living, is breathing. The water is her blood. It's up to us to look after all of these things. That's why that's why we're considered to be stewards of the land. We were conscious of this for thousands of years, of how to be in existence with the earth, to look after everything that's there. And then we acknowledged, the waters, her blood. And then we acknowledged the plant life and the trees and the forests, where we get our sustenance, where we get our ability to clothe ourselves into those celestial bodies that we experience. We say that every morning when the sun comes up, to be thankful for that, because that sun, we say, is doing their original instructions. They're coming up in the east and rising again and traveling to the west. And we know this from watching nature. If that was to stop happening, then there's something amiss in our world. There's something amiss in our universe, in our existence. Our grandmother moon, the one that looks out for us at night, she's doing her original instructions. She provides so many things for us that we don't even know everything of the moon's ability, the effects it has on us as human beings. So all the other celestial bodies in the sky, acknowledging the winds. Acknowledging the winds, when the winds come every spring and bring those rains, they're doing their original instructions that they were given by Creator. They're reminding us again that the cycle of life is going to happen again. That new growth, that rebirth is going to happen, just as it has been for the past month or so. So when those first winds come in, when that first rainstorm with the lightning and the thunder comes in, wakens up the air, wakens up the animals beneath the earth even, brings everything to life. That's a reminder that we're going to see a cycle of life again as human beings, as we know it. That cycle of life that's plentiful to us, so that we can exist and share this world. We talked about our eldest brother, sun, our grandmother, the moon, the messengers of Creator. We say that we have messengers that walk with us as Haudenosaunee people. Those signs, those voices, those little nudges that we have, whatever you want to call it, that look out for us, to keep us safe. To keep us safe to do the work of Creator, to help and be kind to each other. Those voices, it was explained to me, I've learned from many different peoples and many different nations through actively listening and engaging in discourse with them, over many, many subjects of just life. You know, and so one way was explained is that we have male and female energy within us. And when we have that dis-ease that we all experience in life, well, those male and female energies are from infant to youth to adult into eldership. When we have that dis-ease within us, if we can pinpoint where that dis-ease is, we can listen to that voice of the messenger. We can, for ourselves, help figure out what's going on in here, so that I can understand for myself as a human being. And we're all given that knowledge. We're all given intuition. You know, what's the natural state of a child? Just to be happy. When did you stop being happy? Who told you you had to stop being happy? Why are you unhappy? I know why I'm unhappy, because I didn't get any dessert. No, I'm just kidding. They're making faces at me. You know, just the general conversations. This is all pulled out of other conversations that I've had with other people's, from my own mind, just sharing with you, you know, these generalizations of how to be a good human being. We all know everything we needed to know was taught to us in kindergarten. How to be nice to each other. How to hold the door for somebody. How to share your pencil crayons with somebody else, or your crayons with somebody else. Somewhere along the line, we lost track of all that stuff that we have. Like I said, we're all intuitive. We all have intuition. We all get those gut feelings, right? I've been telling everybody and sharing with everybody my perspective on what's been going on with the pandemic and how everybody's doing this and doing that and doing. We can't fault anybody for doing whatever they're doing, whether you get the vaccine or not, doesn't matter to me. Because what we're doing is we're listening to our intuition, our gut feeling on what's best for my health. I've drove up to stores, drove 10 minutes to go to a store, got out, walked up to the door and decided, nope, I'm not going in there. And I just turned around and walked away. You know? And I starved for 3 days. No, I'm just kidding. I never starved. But for whatever reason, I was just listening to my voice. We've all been living like this in isolation for this whole time. So listening to that intuitive voice about what to do, what's best for myself. Nobody can be wronged for what they're doing right now. How can how can anybody pass judgment on anybody, especially right now? We're all doing what we think we need to do to make it through another day. There's no wrong answer to me. We can only do the best that we can with what we got. And we don't even have anything to compare this to. That's what makes it so hard too. What do we have in our life experience, our parents' experience, our grandmothers, our grandparents' experience that could give relevance to how to deal with what we've been dealing with since 2019, 2020? It's come down to listening to our intuition that was gifted to us by Creator. Your intuition was gifted to you by Creator to look after you. To me, intuition is, your gut feeling is driving down the road and seeing a stop sign, or turning left, or turning around. It's the same as emotions. Emotions are the same thing. Emotions are just emotions. They too will pass. We can't live in our emotions as human beings. We know what happens when we do, through our past experiences. of how that works out for us. I know for mine, I know for myself that, you know, that angry young kid from way back in the 70s going into the 80s, that didn't work. Something had to change. It took 3 days into the woods and 3 days out. I'm still walking out of the woods. Still trying to understand this dynamic of who I am, this dynamic of who you are, with all those emotions wrapped up into one. There's no denying that it's been tough getting through this, but we're still here. Sun's still rising. Those original instructions that were given to everything in Creator are still happening. Mosquitoes are back. Yay! It's another sign of spring that creation is happening again. What do the mosquitoes do? They feed the birds, right? It's all connected, just as we are, to creation. It doesn't matter where you come from. To me, you know, it was shared with me when I was talking with somebody about music, about the drums and the power of our water drums, of the powwow drum, of the hand drums. Talking to somebody about how powerful music is, and there was a few of us around a powwow drum. I had a powwow, and there was a non-Indigenous person who wanted to come, and just wanted to sit down and just talk. He said, "Yeah, sure, of course." He was talking about music, and he was trying to understand the feelings and emotions that he was experiencing from being close to the powwow drum and listening to the singing. And one of my mentors who was sitting there says, "Do you know why we still have what we have in our ways of life?" He said, "No." He says, "Because we're only like about 500 years removed from who we really are." How far back do you, from whatever your background is, do you have to go where you can say that same thing? How far back does that go? Thousands and thousands of years? But he said, "I'll bet you there's a drum in your background somewhere." And he said, "I'll bet you that the things that you see going on in here and are experiencing a community, society level, probably pretty darn close to what's in your background." That's why music's so powerful to all of us. That's why those emotions were stirred up. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm on. I don't know if I'm on. It's hard to gauge. Hard to gauge like this. I always love having these talks so they can have a discourse. There's nothing better than learning through these books of lives that are in front of me right now, or sitting here in the room too, right? The amazing conversations sitting around and talking with people. Is that Patch Adams said he had the most amazing conversations, true story, in Robin Williams movie, most amazing stories by just calling up random people and just talking to them for hours. He said he learned amazing things of life just by doing that. Like, who does that? and you know, that's what we're all here to do. We're all here to support, help, love each other, regardless of whether you're Haudenosaunee or Irish or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Understanding who we are and how our peoples are gives us a sense of belonging. That's what brought me back to where I am today as a human being. I didn't know who I was, what it meant to be a person from Six Nations, as a man from Six Nations. And that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years, is just trying to understand that and do the best that I can with the knowledge that I'm acquiring along the way. That's what this Thanksgiving address is about. There's probably a Thanksgiving address or something similar to your own background. A lot of you probably practice doing something when you get up in the morning anyways, or before you go to sleep. Those connections we have to make to beyond ourselves, because we know we can't do it all as human beings. It's impossible. It's impossible to carry all that weight. Wouldn't even want to try. Well, I used to try, but never did me any good until I started understanding more and more about who I was. About listening, actively listening to people around me, listening to their struggles with everyday life, and reflecting myself through that active listening, asking questions, trying to make sense of it all. Well, the Thanksgiving address for us comes from us, the Haudenosaunee people. Does everybody know who the Haudenosaunee people are? The Haudenosaunee are the Six Nations. You ever heard of the Six Nations? Yeah. If you ever do any reading too, we'll call it the Haudenosaunee now. That's what we're referred to in academia. But prior to that, we were the Six Nations. You go a little bit further back in time, we're the Five Nations prior to 1763. If you'll find writings earlier than that. And the French called us the Iroquois. So there's 4 different names that we carry that talks about who we are. We're the Mohawk, the Oneida, the Onondaga, the Cayuga, the Seneca, and the Tuscaroras, who in 1763 were adopted into the Haudenosaunee Confederacy because they were being decimated by the Dutch down in North Carolina, so they came to us to ask for protection. And they became the Sixth Nation. That's why you hear Six Nations now. And we spread out from east, the other side of Montreal, over to west, the other side of Syracuse, above that imaginary line called the border in Canada and the United States. And we do have displaced fractions of our nations down in Oklahoma and other parts, and that's all due to colonization. But that's who we are. A lot of people still refer to us as the Iroquois, but that's never what we called ourselves. That's the name the French gave us. To us, that's how we conduct our business, is to acknowledge creation above all else. It is to, and part of the Donnie told, to bring our minds together as one. To be in agreement, for everybody to be in agreement with that. To bring our minds together as one, to acknowledge creation above human beings. Imagine if we can, and I've seen this happening too, imagine if we started adopting that kind of philosophy towards the things that we do in life. I've witnessed, I worked a lot of construction when I was a young guy. And companies that I worked for, or even the companies, whether they were construction or not back then, focused on the mental and physical aspects of doing business. Show up to work or you're fired. You act like this or you're fired. Do this or you're fired. Do that or you're fired. There was never any consideration for the emotional and the spiritual part of us as human beings, which is something that I've been seeing happening now. Companies have a much more human approach to how they conduct their business, how they look after their employees. Things are changing. I guess that's what.
Your sound is off.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna work on that, Phil. The sound came out
So this one just see how the mic right here. Okay. Can you guys hear sound?
I think the sound is back now, Phil, if you want to speak
Okay,
and just.
okay.
Yeah, as I was saying, that's a double cheese pepperoni, please. You can tell I like food, right? I forget where I was. Oh, about work. Yeah, talking about work and how back when I was younger and worked a lot of construction jobs, companies would only focus on the mental and physical parts of their employees. You show up to work on this time and you work to this time or you're fired. You do this, you do that, you're fired. There's no consideration about what was going on in people's lives. But that's been changing because people are now adapting more and more to the looking at the emotional and spiritual part. And those things that I'm talking about, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, all part of the medicine wheel teaching. So you can look that up, medicine wheel teachings, and see how that's used, and especially in academia, as a tool to help design curriculum or programming, whether it's Indigenous or not. It helps create a balanced approach of a human existence. You know, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. I've said that a couple of times. You know, those could be like the four messengers. Also, in my perspective, you know, I'm not sharing this from a Haudenosaunee perspective. I'm sharing this from a human being's perspective. Well, maybe those are the four messengers. Here's something from that emotional part, saying you need to go look after this, or you need to do something about it because it's creating dis-ease within you.
So Phil,
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know, I'm not sure if you had seen any, there were a few thumbs up and heart reactions
Yes,
in the chat. There aren't any questions that have been left in the chat yet or comments. So I think there was also a suggestion about maybe we could open for a more general discussion,
Sure.
if that's something that people would like to try doing. I think that we're a small enough group that if people want to unmute themselves and share either a reflection or a question, they can feel free to go ahead and do that.
I see some pencils moving there.
You can also, again, still drop a question into the chat and I can read it if you would prefer to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time with us and, you know, making those reflections. And, you know, I really love the acknowledgement and thinking of, you know, everything around us, and that everything has, you know, a purpose, and that nature is the way it is, and that everything is, you know, the way it is. And, you know, we should also reflect on that every day and in, you know, our encounters with everything around us. I really valued when you said that we are alive. We have gone through, you know, this situation since, right, in 2020, it could have been around us even before, and we didn't even know it. And yet we managed, we're here. So I really love that, because true, there are so many people that aren't here around us, right? And no judgment. Like everyone has had and we have our own way of dealing with what's happening around us. Thank you for reminding us that, you know, that is what's happening. And, you know, we have our own way of dealing with a pandemic, which you didn't even mention the word. So it's lovely that you did that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. There was a question that popped up too, and they asked, what does Solstice Day mean to Haudenosaunee? Well, it's easy. It's a paid day off work. Yeah. Well, we all know it would be the longest day of the year, right? And the significance of a new harvest year. And again, like I was saying, it's the cycle of life is happening again too. There's no, as you would say, some kind of specific ceremony just for Solstice Day. It's all related. It's all related to the moon cycles. Everything that happens through Longhouse. I've never attended Longhouse. I just understand conversations from all my friends who are Longhouse. You know, our ceremonies are around the 13 moon cycle. Anybody else? Anybody in the participating audience?
Hi, I'm Rosalinda Paredes. It's so so lovely to hear you speak about life in its entirety, like in this whatever hour or something like that. You have really touched on all of the aspects of life, and I'm so reminded of you know, growing up as a kid in my country of origin, Chile, and I don't know, like right now I'm drinking an herbal tea, right? That I bought the herbs somewhere here in Toronto, but listening to you reminds me of how in Chile, when I was a kid, my grandmother would say, you know, after dinner, and she would just say, she would call me by my nickname, Sotita, and say, you know, just go to the herb garden and bring me, I don't know, chamomile or, you know, whatever herb. And that always gave, as a kid, that always gave me a connection to the earth. And you know, and I haven't lived in the country for many years. And so just listening to you now, it's just really reviving those connections, I guess, you know. And yeah, and you were talking about us needing to understand and reflect, you know, daily to really know where we came from and where we are. And yeah, so I don't know, I guess all I want to say is that it's just what you're talking about really resonates with me, and it's just bringing back a lot of connections, you know, to my roots and my family. You know, my grandmother is long gone, my father is gone, my mom is still hanging there. And so, you know, it's just really special to hear this, because I'm in a transition. Yeah, I'm entering, you know, a new phase. You know, I'm walking with my mom as she's leaving us. That's how I feel. And so this year has been really, really hard. So it's good to be reminded that there are good things, even though there's a pandemic. and even though my mom is leaving this earth. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Like I say, I've spent a lot of time talking about different things in life. Spent a lot of time going to sweat lodges. You know, I've a mentor teaching me about life from my own perspective. You know, what I've experienced. He was a sweat lodge keeper. He was the one who was conducting and sharing, asking me questions afterwards, just to see how I viewed life. I see that now. We never talked about this, but I see now how him asking me questions was him bringing out, revealing myself through what I observed and teaching me about my own emotions and feelings through observation of others and connecting with that in a human way. And it was for the sake of, you know, trying to help me understand so that I could be able to help others, help them understand as well too. That's what it was all about. And we remember us sitting around, there was 4, 5 of us men. We were there prior to the sweat lodge, getting things ready. It was a beautiful day. It was warm. We worked for a little while, and then we all came and sat down. You know, we sat around having a coffee and gabbing. And the one gentleman who was newer to me, I'd met him a couple of times, but he knew the other men that were there. And he was talking about he had just lost his dad, you know, just prior to coming there, probably a couple of weeks. And there was another gentleman there. And he shared that, you know, he had already, both of his parents had already passed. And what was shared with him a long time ago was that he was told that that state of where he was in his life at that time was called true parenthood. True parenthood when we don't have our mom and dads to talk to. That all we can do is live our lives and respectfully bring their teachings that they gave to us their whole life and carry on with being a good parent. And when my mom passed 4 years ago, I was reflected back on that, about how I still have my father, but I've taken this step into what's called true parenthood. Yeah. I don't know if that helps any, but it helped me. It helped me get in touch with that place inside of myself, about how life carries on. This is all a part of life. And that gentleman who shared it strictly out of love. Strictly out of love. We all got up and gave that man a hug, because we could see that he was having a rough time. So if you were here right now, I'd come over and give you a big hug.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's amazing. Like I said, it's amazing what we can learn from each other if we actively listen. I keep saying actively listening. That's something as a volunteer counselor for like 20 years I've learned. You know, actively listening is listening for the sake of listening and not thinking about how you're going to reply to the person talking. Just absorbing what's being shared with you right in front of you at the time. We don't have to always, we're always taught we have to 100% engage in conversation, no matter when the conversation is, and have input and all of that. Where does the learning really come from? All of our teachings are oral, passed down from generation to generation to generation. How do you absorb all that? For us, we have our Onondaga Nation. It said that they're the record keepers. They sit in the center of the territory. Whatever council, when Grand Council would come together, that's where everybody would go. They would go to the Onondaga territory and they'd have a Grand Council to discuss the business of the Haudenosaunee. And there were, they called record keepers that were Onondaga. It was their job to remember verbatim the last meeting, or the one from a year ago, or this one. Somebody had to recollect all of that information of the business of the 52 chiefs, 52 clan mothers, and the chiefs had sub-chiefs underneath them. That's how and it was a consensual governance. That's how we conduct ourselves, and so somebody was a record keeper. Well, that was their specific job. Remember what was said. That would have to be really the epitome of active listening. To be able to do those kind of deeds, it's just something that we don't compute anymore, because we have so many things that do that for us now. We live in a different age now. I call it an interruption. The interruption of this face-to-face interaction with each other as human beings. We pick up so much from each other when we're in the presence of each other. Especially when we need to talk on important things like, peace and harmony. For myself, I believe peace is a conversation. Peace just isn't going to happen just like that. We have to define what that looks like. How can I have peace with you and you and you? It'd be 3 different answers, but it can be done. Could we do it over top of this with this interruption in the way? Who got the vote on the fact that technology was going to take over our lives? When did that happen? Right? It seems almost unnatural when you look at it, especially now through this time that we're living in too. Maybe that's why we need to become connected so well like this. Imagine if this happened and we didn't have technology with a pandemic like this. It'd be kind of crazy. Oh, I have a audience member.
Oh, there I am. Hi, everyone. I have a question, and it's just a noticing, I guess, for Phil. As I'm listening, I kind of was thinking the Thanksgiving address was about gratitude. And
Hi, Laura. Sorry, you're very quiet. I think you just need to more center yourself.
How's that? Can you hear me now? Okay, good. Oh, look at all the thumbs up. Thanks, guys. So as I'm listening, I was kind of thinking the Thanksgiving address was about gratitude. And now that I'm listening, it feels like it's also about accepting what is and everything around. And I guess my question is, how do you use the Thanksgiving address in your everyday to keep you centered when bad things like global pandemics happened? And is there a connection between the gratitude and just the plain acceptance?
Are they really bad things? Are they really bad things, or things just beyond our control? There are some really, really bad things, but then are they really, really bad things, or are they just, you know, difficult? Yes, yes. For myself, everything happens the way it's supposed to happen, and the acceptance in that has been a struggle for myself too. Learning that as a human being, I've got about this much control about what goes on outside of this. This is the only thing that I'm able to govern. And that doesn't always work out either, right? We just try to do the best that we can, and accepting the world the way that it is and how it is. One mentor says, "Let me see your letter." I said, "What letter?" He said, "The one that left you in charge while Creator went on vacation." I said, "Oh, okay, I get it." You know, there's, you know, we have to, being humbled, to me, that's a lot what the Thanksgiving dress will do. It humbles me. It really, really humbles me. You know, and to say that you're humbled by anything in life, it goes way beyond just that word. There's a whole emotion tied to that. There's a whole physical, mental, and spiritual way of being that's tied to that too. You know, like I said before, our emotions are signs in life. They're just signs. Like I said, turn left, turn right, stop, turn around. But when we live in them and we get stuck in those emotions, you know, it always drags us down. It always drags us down. And sometimes we have to live with them in order to get through them. If you can't go around them, you can't go under them, you can't go over them, you just go through them, right? So and that going through takes time. Allowing yourself, I know for myself, it's still a hard thing to do, to allow myself to go through the not good emotions. To let myself sit in my own misery, not for too long, but to figure out what's in there for me. There's something in there. It's explained to me that when we're gifted our tobacco, I was gifted tobacco, traditional tobacco for this. When somebody gifts us tobacco or gives us any kind of gift, we take that with our left hand because our left hand is closest to our heart. And if we think about emotions or something that we perceive from somebody that has a negative effect on us, or they said something to us that really is hurtful, if we take that and let it filter through our heart and keep that lesson, is what's going to stay with us. That lesson becomes love for us because it helps teach us to look after ourselves again, right? And with whatever's left over, we raise our hand up and give it back to Creator, because we're only human. We don't know what to do with somebody else's part of the language, shit. And that's basically what is it, somebody else's shit that they're trying to put onto you. Well, that's what I've been taught anyways. And all of these things that I've been sharing with you, and it's part of what I have to retell myself all the time. I call them tools. I picked up these tools and having different ways of dealing with life, as opposed to the way I used to deal with life, which I wasn't dealing with life. I was having all these really messed up emotions as a young man, not understanding them. And I got to that point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I started just grabbing the bull by the horns and taking it on. So being humble, that's exactly what the Thanksgiving doesn't matter when I hear it, where I hear it. And two, like I said before too, this is a short version of of the, it's like the timeline thing. I've listened to our peoples, the fluent speakers, get up and speak for 45 minutes to an hour to do the Thanksgiving, the opening address. And a lot of them say the same thing. They'll say, I could spend days talking about the things that I'm grateful for on this earth that Creator gave to us. And that's how I was taught to learn the Thanksgiving address in the language, was to look at my feet with the earth underneath it and slowly raise my eyes up. And everything that I saw as I was raising my eyes up into the skies and beyond the clouds, that's what I need to be grateful for as a human being. 4.6 billion years old, the planet is. How old is the universe? All of that was in motion before we even got here.
So I'm just seeing a question from Maria as well. I don't know if you're able to see that.
Yeah.
And I can read it out.
Sure.
So she's asking, as settlers, it's time to take action. Sometimes we are scared to ask. There's much harm that has been done, and we want to start, but don't know where. And she's wondering if the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action, you think if those are a good place to start.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Look in your heart. Reach out to your community. There's something in those 92, 96, I can't remember. Pardon? 93. I'm just guessing. Yeah, but there's something in there for you that speaks to your heart. That's what I do nowadays. I just follow my heart. That's all I can do. That's the only way I can maintain my happiness as Phil.
She's also asking this in around the idea of humbleness. So humbleness is also being uncomfortable and stepping out of the comfort zone. And I think that she's asking if maybe you have more to say about that idea.
Yeah, being uncomfortable is it's an act of awareness. You become aware that you feel out of place or whatever it is. But that act of awareness is always the first step to change. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be, I need to lose some weight, or I feel tired. That's an act of awareness, or I don't like the way this government treats Indigenous people. It's an act of awareness. Any of those types of things that are those emotions that raise a flag for you. Say you're uncomfortable. Well, I mean, eventually you're going to say to yourself, I say to myself, well, why am I comfortable? What makes me feel uncomfortable? What do I have to do to be okay with this, to not be uncomfortable? Because I don't like being uncomfortable. Does that help?
And clapping hands was
Right.
the response to that. So great. And then I think unless there are other questions or comments that that people wanted to make, I think we might be moving on to the next.
Yeah. Can I suggest we take like 5 minutes? Give everybody 5 minutes. We've been talking for well over an hour. Be good to get up and stretch, and I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's say we'll be back here at 8:13. Which is 5 minutes from now.
Sure. Thanks, Mom.
That's a lot of sitting and a lot of chatting. You may notice that we didn't do a land acknowledgement to start this session, which is a little unconventional considering, but that was something we thought of on purpose, because really, sometimes land acknowledgements can be rote, can be you know, something that is read off of a paper. And I think listening to Thanksgiving address allows us time to actually consider and be grateful and think about the land that we are on, and who has connection to the land that we're on and who is here. Phil mentions the Haudenosaunee. He mentions the Huron-Wendat, which they did not call themselves Huron. That was a name that the French gave to them. These are all things that we don't necessarily learn about in history, but they are things I feel like every time Phil talks, I learn something. And one thing that we're going to be passing along to you as at the end of this session is, as a follow-up, is just ways to think about your own land acknowledgement. I know as a settler on this land that I have a responsibility to learn more. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission report was mentioned, so the 94 actions that was published 5 years ago. 8 of them to date have been accomplished, so I think there's still ways to go, and I think that if you haven't read the calls to action, I think it is worthwhile taking a look at that and seeing like things that resonate with you, as Phil mentioned. Yeah, and not asking for folks from the outside to tell you what action to take, but look into your heart and think about what action you want to take. I applaud you guys for being here tonight to share in this valuable information and to learn more. I think that, yeah, the more that we're able to chat about these things, the more that we can create equity and think about justice in our world. I think those are things that should be considered when we're talking about a land acknowledgement. Dr. Cindy Blackstock is a Indigenous thinker, and she says that reconciliation is not what you say, it's what you do. So I like to think about that and make it personal for me. You're good? Okay. So we wanted to share in a song, or we're sharing. Sorry, we're going to be sharing the video first. Okay, my apologies. So, did you want to introduce the video? So Erica Miranda is going to be talking about the video that we're going to be sharing with you right now. I will pass it on to you, Erica.
Hello, folks. And can everyone hear me? Yes? Great. So yeah, speaking of, I've just been thinking a lot about the words that have been shared today, that Phil shared, and this feeling of being uncomfortable. And I have a beautiful little story I want to share with you all. And I'm going to share a 1-minute clip of a very, very courageous and vulnerable spirit. So today is the solstice, and it reminds me of a very good friend of mine who is no longer here due to COVID. He passed away on May 19th, and he was a caretaker of this land for over 30 years as a migrant farm worker. And the migrant farm workers have this incredible connection to the soil and to the land in such a profound way, right? That, you know, many of us will never know. And they're invisible, and they're kept invisible in the, in the farms, to feed us. And so my dear friend, Juan Luis Mendoza de la Cruz, I worked with him kind of by fluke. He turned 50 years old, and he wanted to leave a legacy, and he wanted to change the migrant farm worker system. And so he decided to be very uncomfortable and put his body on to show Canadians, people, you know, not just with words, but with his body, his hands, his sweat, his the hues of his skin, and through movement, right? So we created a dance piece together, which is about a 15-minute dance piece called The Sunflower Man. And it's a way that he wanted to pay homage to the sunflowers, where he's been working in these sunflower fields for about 10 years in this region, and its relationship to the elements, and the power of creation, and this powerful willingness to connect and give back to Mother Earth through movement, right? And so he also was very interested in learning about this land and its original peoples, because he saw similarities between how Indigenous peoples were treated in Mexico. And I also will say the same thing for where my family's from, Guatemala. So he worked in various nations' territories throughout Canada, and he really developed this close connection and love to the soil and the seeds and their relationship to the elements. And Phil today was talking about, obviously, the Thanksgiving address and the sunrise. And like this motif of our piece was, you know, various ways to embody the sunrises, right? So he would use his hands and his arms and, you know, start to the left, to the heart, and like, you know, move from the east to the west and really embrace this sunrise. It was one of the things that he loved about his job. So I'm going to share this 1-minute clip that was taken by Colombian-born, Toronto-based filmmaker Monica Gutierrez. And the song is by Xavier Quijas Axoyotl, and it's called Copal Offering to Four Directions. And the album is called Aztec Dances. So Caitlin, if you can put that on, I really appreciate it. So without further ado, here's a piece of The Sunflower Man, starring the late Juan Luis Mendoza de la Cruz and me. Thanks.
So it's a lovely piece, and how it connects to the Thanksgiving address and how it connects to the land, I think is just, yeah, that's what really makes it special. Yeah, and how it connects to those who work the land and those who care for the land. These are all pieces of acknowledging that I think are really important. Something else that Phil wants to share with us is a song. Would you like to introduce? Are there any questions or any, is anything anybody want to share with us at this time before I
I just love that. I love that. I love the fusion of a dancer with a heavy-bodied farm laborer, and I think making a beautiful thing together that's too beautiful for words. I love it.
Yeah, agreed. Well, we can send out the entire, like a clip to the entire piece as well. That was just a taste of it, but yeah, I think it is. And Erica did mention that sadly Louise passed on this year, but the legacy he left stays with us. I think that if you ever did meet him, had the pleasure to meet him, he led with his heart, and he also worked very hard with his body, and his body was, you know, what he gave to Canada and what he gave to the land was really quite astounding. But what you remember is like the beauty of his openness. Yeah. Anyone else? It's nice to see the hearts and the, yeah. All right, sir. So I'll introduce you. I know we did get a chance to have dessert. I just wanted you to know that in the short break. I was eating a little bit of, it's a lot of talking and a lot of sharing, and I think a little bit of sugar is always great, right? And so being a drummer and sharing that with us it's another piece of connecting with each other, connecting with it. So in a time when we're so very disconnected in a lot of ways. I mean, I look on the screen, I see these faces, but it's not quite the same as meeting in person, is it? I mean, that is really something that we've been missing, and yeah, in a lot of ways. And sometimes it feels almost like socially awkward, because at least I'm speaking for myself, that like when we get back together in these circles, like, yeah, you kind of forget how to relate. But the importance of it is huge. Yeah, and the drum is like the heartbeat. And so sharing that with us, as well as sharing your teachings tonight, Phil, are things that will carry us forward. At least will carry me forward, I can speak. Yeah, and we are very grateful, especially on a day like today, with the solstice, the longest day of the year. National Aboriginal Day for, you know, that what that might mean, or how that might be colonial, I don't know. But sharing your time with us. Time is all we have. It's true, yeah. So thank you. Did you want to take over? I'll put my mask back on.
Now back to our regularly scheduled program. Gotta laugh. Laugh, 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 laugh. It's the best thing. It's the best thing. Every time I go to one of our gatherings, you know, that's all we do is sit around and laugh. You know, life isn't that bad. You can't share a meal and sing some songs and just hang out. Right? Doesn't matter who you're with. You know, I've always been drawn to music from a young age. My dad he's a classic country guitar picker, and that's what inspired me to start getting musically involved. And now been playing music since it's anything that I do needs to involve music. That's me following my heart. That's me making my realizations of what needs to be in my life in order to make this feel sustained, this to feel full. You know, sharing words and building a larger community, a larger, safer community for my children and my grandchildren. There's a lot of why I do what I do. Hopefully there was some awareness and education raised through any of the words that I shared with everybody. I hope there was some demystification that happened too as well. You know, we're still trying to live down into that silly Hollywood version of what it means to be an Indian. It's been such a, it's still a big struggle. People, it's amazing how people think still to this day that we all live in teepees, or you know, that we actually have houses on the reserve, or there's a reserve that close. All these things that tie into the everyday societal vernacular that has no basis of truth whatsoever, ever, other than it was born out of Hollywood. There's actually, if you want to write this down, there's a movie called Real Injun, REELINJUN. It's really well put together and talks about the influence of Hollywood on the image of Indigenous peoples in North America. It's really eye-opening. It was eye-opening to me to see how that was used to promote the politics of the times. And this is going all the way back to the 1900s that the film takes place too. So it's just in a chronological order of our image through Hollywood. Music's been a big part of my life. I love playing guitar. I do it every single day. I sing powwow songs and Cree-style round dance songs. That's when you see us on the hand drums, especially when you see us together. For whatever reason, we gather out in the streets. You'll see a hand drummer there. That's the style of drums they are. We're all distinct from each other. There's 614 different nations of people, Indigenous peoples, just in Canada. Over 600 United States that are still in existence. You know, there's a few in the States that are still waiting to be recognized by the United States Congress. You know, but everybody had their own ways of knowing, their own ways of life, their own ways of fishing, hunting, clothing, food preparation, rites of passage, ceremonies, song base. Just no different than anywhere else on the planet. We're all distinct from each other, but we do have a lot of commonalities, just like anybody else too. Like I said, we're only 500 years removed from who we really are. That's why we still know a lot about who we are. That's only how many generations. So to end this off on my part, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for your time, for being here, for your questions, for your thumbs ups and your hearts, and just for listening. You know, it's the least I can do to help move all of this forward, especially with what's going on today in the country. With first the awareness of the 215 in Kamloops, and now we're up to 595. I think the count is something like that, and it's going to keep growing and growing and growing. Bear with us. We're all in a state of shock. I know I am. We've known about this, but just never the extent. And now that it's been finally brought forward, you know, that acknowledgement that what we've been told for generations is true. So hopefully, as we step forward together, we can just be kind and love each other, have some patience, and there's no rush. We know from the way life has been over the past couple of years that there's no rush. There's no rush. Life was pretty darn fast prior to that. I can tell you that from my perspective of how crazy fast life was. And it's slowed down. We've seen that obviously in the sky with less traffic. We've seen that on the streets with less traffic. Everybody's maintaining their distance from each other. We've all had to slow down. If we can do that mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, we'll all get through this a little bit better for ourselves. There's a whole thing that went on right across the globe. This consciousness has changed right across the globe. So let's use it for the best way that we possibly can and just love each other and be kind to each other. I want to share a song. This is to acknowledge and honor the ones who passed on before us. The song comes from a group called Tabik. It's an Anishinaabe, Ojibwe brothers from up around Berry Way, Christian Island Way. Shared this song. It's called the Elder Song, and they sang the song at a powwow. I was like, wow. Next time I heard it, I asked if I could sit with them and learn the song. And then one of the men who created it, I asked him if it was okay if our group sang their song. And gave him some tobacco, and he said, yeah. He says, you can use that, and here's what that song's for. So it's been probably about 10, 12 years, I think, since that song was passed on, and I hear it a lot all over the place. It was a very touching, emotional song. That's what comes through when we sing. There's no words. They're vocables. People call them chants. We call them vocables. But it's using the voice as the instrument to express the emotion, like using the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale, if you would like, just to think of it in that sense. We're using our voice as the instrument to convey the message. And now that you know what the message is, you can hear the emotion of the message. And I'll try not to make the drum too loud, because I know these recordings can be kind of a little wonky sometimes. If you don't have your microphone off, turn that off, please. That might be of interference on your end. Okay. So you can stand if you want. This is for those children, for their families who are grieving, for the nations that are grieving, for everybody in the nation that we call Canada and the United States that are grieving because of this huge tragedy that was purposely executed against us. From a genocide was executed against us as Indigenous people, but we're still here, and that's what matters. And the way that we can carry on that best with respect and love is to honor them to bring us all together like this today. So now we'll thank you all very, very much. Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for spending time with us this evening. People are busy, but I do hope that you'll take away something. I know that you will. I know that this carries forward and resonates in minds and hearts. I just want to thank, of course, thank you, Phil, for coming and spending your time with us, Phil Davis. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be sending out some information after this that can, if you're for further reading and for further information. As I mentioned, I look forward to the day when we can meet here in person again and do these things in person, because there's just nothing like that human connection. I'm also very grateful for everyone that's joined us today. Grateful for this conversation. Thank you for those comments. And thank you. There's a lot of thanks to Phil. It's wonderful. Yeah. So the Hamilton Community Food Center is at 310 Limeridge Road West. We will be open one day. Please check out end2endcenter.com because we do put up our schedules there, and there will be, we do have events happening over the summer. We will be able to gather in small groups outside over the summer. So just keep in touch with that. Writing relations as well. We will do these sessions again. So please keep in touch with us that way. I also want to say thanks to the Hamilton Community Foundation for funding these projects and the work of this collective. I don't have anything else to share tonight. My gratitude.
Yeah, we'll go, everybody.